All right, everybody. I want to welcome you to another episode of the Shadows Podcast. I'm your host, Trip Bodenheimer, and today I am joined by a good friend of mine, Jay Lee. Jay, we've been trying to make this thing happen for quite some time, and finally, the stars are aligned. We have you here. Welcome to the Shadows Podcast.
Thanks for having me, Trip. And some things are just worth the wait.
Exactly, and we're actually all banged up here today. You got your arm in a sling. I didn't even tell you before we got on. I have a little stomach bug, so we talk about dedication being on here.
Yeah, you're dedicated. What are you actually sitting on? You got a porta potty over there? Or what are we doing?
That's all I will say is I have a
comment.
little stomach bug going today. But
is that a virtual background?
It is. It is. So tell our listeners what happened with you. This past week. It's got you a little dinged up.
Man, it's just I need to practice what I preach. Tell my son not to mess around because he's gonna get hurt, and that's what I was doing, just messing around, fooling around with some friends, and look at me now, got a sling.
I see what you're supposed to say when we're on the air is you were supposed to say you fought off like a group of like 12 people.
Oh yeah. I mean, what I meant to say was there was this woman checking out at the local Kroger down the road, and I had to defend her honor in the parking lot. You should see the other guy.
Hey, Kroger. Guys.
Yeah, guys.
Yeah.
And I had a couple dogs too and a lion.
Oh man. Well, good for you. Good for you. Well, folks, Jay is a trainer, speaker, coach, founder and president of Golden Compass. He is the host of the Live Free series. He's also part of the Lima Charlie Network. And you are currently in Virginia, correct?
That is correct. Virginia Beach.
How's the weather over there?
Right now, it is not great. Raining.
Really?
Yeah. We got this like weird after winter, pre-spring, doesn't really know what it wants to do yet. Yeah. So
we actually have sunshine. I think you're the first guest where I have better weather than the guest. So this is really nice.
Dang. Where are you at again?
Alabama.
That's right. Alabama.
We kind of get like the tail end of tropical storms, and we're in a spot where like we get the tail end of the tornado weather, tail end of tropical storms. And it's just like, it's constantly coming, one of the two. I was going to record with someone last week, and the internet was out because we had a storm, and I had to pretty much scrap the whole thing. But anyways, let's go ahead and jump into our 5 rounds questions presented by Giant Worldwide. First question for you, book recommendation for our listeners out there.
Book recommendation. Definitely going to go with the 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth. That's what I've been all over it recently. In the past, I read it every year. And no, it's great. I mean, it's all about if you want to change anything in your life, whether that is your self for one, your finances, your leadership, anything, this book will help you 100%.
Yeah, I think we've talked about this one before somewhere.
We must have.
We did.
I talk about it all the time. It's like my favorite book.
Yeah. I can't remember where, but we've mentioned it somewhere. All right. One thing we have not talked about that I'm curious to hear. Favorite Disney character.
Favorite Disney character. Okay. I can get down with this. I've been watching a lot of Disney lately. Okay. Does Pixar count?
Pixar counts. Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to have to go with Dusty Crophopper.
Interesting.
Dusty Crophopper from Planes. Dude is awesome. I mean, he's a plane, I guess, but yeah, legit. Crop duster.
In Disney.
Yeah, he's a dude. I mean, he's a crop duster, wants to be a big time racer, doesn't listen to anyone, does what he wants, gets a coach, which is super important, obviously, and crushes it. And he's serving his purpose. I love it. Love that little dude.
I like how you started it with he's a crop duster. Before anything else, that's what you started with.
Heck yeah.
What gives you meaning?
What gives me meaning? That's a great, deep philosophical question, Trip.
Almost as deep as the one before.
Almost. Yeah, almost. Yeah. I can't say dusting crops because I'm not a crop duster, but I guess what gives me meaning is, and I don't want to sound cliche here, but serving others. And I say that not as like, oh, look at me, I'm like, I commit myself to service, but it's just, I felt, I guess my whole life, I've always just, that's kind of been my thing is That's what I like to do with my time, and if I'm compensated for it, I love it. But if I'm actually helping and contribute, I guess it's more of like contributing in a meaningful way
Hmm.
that gives me purpose because I feel like I'm doing something good, but it's actually benefiting someone else. I don't know. I that's kind of my thing. And that's why, I mean, I joined the military, and it was mainly because, I don't want to go on a tangent in the 5 rounds here, but like when, September 11th happened, I was fairly young, 11 years old, and I couldn't do anything, right? I couldn't do anything
Yeah.
for anyone. I was 11 years old. I guess, man, this is kind of saying this out loud is like making me resonate with Dusty Crophopper essentially. But I couldn't do anything, and um, that would just that bothered me a lot, and I just wanted. So as soon as I could go, I mean, I enlisted when I could, and then I went in, and then didn't look back until now. And now I, even after the military, I'm still in a profession where I am serving the community.
To kind of jump ahead, we're coming back. You still got 2 questions left.
Okay.
9/11. Did that kind of plant a seed in your head that this is something I want to do down the road, join the military?
Oh yeah. I mean, I wanted to do anything, whether that was going to the local fire station. Like, I don't know if they were sending people down to New York. I'm from Syracuse, New York. So it's close enough where people would get down there to help out. So if they needed extra, I mean, even taking out the trash at a fire department, like that's what I wanted to do. It's like, man, these people are doing this for each other. They don't even know each other down there. Everyone is just helping everyone. I want to do what I can do. Like, but I don't know what I can do. I'm like 4 hours away, and I'm 11. So what can I do? And that's kind of where I went. I was like, I'm going to do something as soon as I can.
Yeah. 11, all you can do is like mow the grass or something.
Yeah, if that,
Yeah.
they could get landscapers. I'm like, dude, come on. Like, can I just like take out the trash? I'll hold the door open. Like, I'll just high five you guys on the way out. Like, what can I do? Like, wax the truck? Like, no, you're definitely not waxing the truck.
Get out of here, kid.
Yeah,
What's the most embarrassing thing that's ever happened to you?
man, that's going to take some time. Let's see. The most embarrassing thing, a lot of embarrassing things have happened to me. Man, I'm trying to think of one ridiculous one.
Has anything embarrassing happened since you started podcasting?
Not on the air, thankfully. But now that I say that, it's probably going to happen.
We'll see how this
soon.
episode goes. We'll see.
Yeah. I guess, what was it? I mean, I guess so when I started coaching, I was getting prospects from a lead source essentially. And I got 2 of them mixed up, and I had never seen them face to face.
Yeah.
So I was talking on the phone to someone, and they probably were in totally different demographics, like, maybe 34-year-old male versus a 56-year-old woman, and just like totally different. I don't know why. I thought like maybe the woman was the 25-year-old, female, and then there was an older male. But yeah, I flipped them, and I was essentially talking to the one, thankfully, and then just like several minutes go by, and they're kind of like, yeah, cool. And it's like, this is like the initial consult.
Yeah.
And they're like, what? Like, then they kind of like picked up like what I was saying wasn't really applicable. It's like, what are you talking about? And then I like listed, because like, they sent me essentially their pain points. I'm like, retirement's approaching, want to make sure your legacy box is in order, so on and so forth. He's like, no, I'm not worried about any of that stuff. It's like, who are you? And so I literally didn't even know who I was talking to. So that was a good lesson learned, to actually figure out who you're talking to before you're talking to them. So yeah, which you think would be standard, but yeah, there you go.
It's where you stop. You're like, all right, I'm starting this over. Hey, I'm Jay.
It's like, yeah, can we just rewind? They're like, meh.
Or you just say, you know what? I don't think this is going to work out. This is not good.
It's like, you're being aggressive. I can't work with you.
This is just not a good fit.
Yeah.
All right. Guilty pleasure of yours.
Guilty pleasure of mine. Well, as not to incriminate myself, I will, let's see, keep it clean here. I love eating fruit snacks. Oh my God. Especially like my kid, my oldest is 3. So we kind of like, and during the whole potty training thing, we're like, if you go by yourself, you can get a fruit snack. I'm talking like, the little pack of fruit snacks, whatever. He's like,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm gonna earn some fruit snacks. And I was like, I'm gonna have some of these fruit snacks. And I was like, oh my God, these are so good. So I'm like literally in the garage, just like eating fruit snacks, like working on a project. So
Yeah,
good though.
got to go out the garage real quick, and
Yeah. It's
that's
like normal,
harmless, I
normal,
guess.
normal people are like drinking beers out in the garage or whatever. I'm just like
Smoking
eating like 10 bags of fruit snacks. Yeah, it's all good.
that, so I can actually relate to that. And my thing is because I'm a big fruit snack person as well. Like the little, like the shape like the strawberry, they're shaped
Oh
like the
yeah.
grape. Yeah,
Yeah.
I can't think of the brand, but like the blue package. Oh my god,
Dude, Welch's.
Welch's. Yes, the
Yeah.
Welch's ones. So I'll go in
Gotta
the
be
kitchen.
Welch's.
Oh yeah, you go in the kitchen and the families. You can pretty much eat them really quick. The small
Oh
packs.
yeah. Like a hand, you just put the whole handful in and just bam.
Yeah, and then you're in the kitchen, out of the kitchen. You don't get caught, and you don't feel bad eating them. It's not like you're eating chocolate or something like that.
That's right.
But all right,
It's fruit, you know?
exactly, it's healthy for you.
I'm eating 10 servings of fruit in secrecy in my garage.
Yeah,
So whatever.
5 different fruits right there. So it's
A
good
handful
for
at
you.
a time.
Yeah. All right. Well, you survived the 5 rounds. Now, yeah. Now that was the hard part. Now the easy part. Now you just talk about you. So for our audience out there, talk to us about your upbringing.
My upbringing, grew up in Syracuse, New York, and my parents were divorced when I was very young. I was born at a young age, so probably shortly thereafter. And yeah, single mom raised pretty much. I have an older sister, and it was just the two of us for a while until right around my 14th. I think like I was just gonna turn 14. My little brother was born.
Mhm.
So yeah, he came along, and then it was 3 of us, siblings, and my mom. She decided, kids are getting ready to graduate high school here, so I might as well just start over. Why not? Um, but we love him anyway. And but yeah, no, it was. I mean, that was it. I mean, single mom raised. She was, man, like did everything she possibly could for us, and that's where I really first learned hard work and work ethic, I should say, because I mean, she did nothing for herself. I mean, she was just like always working, and essentially like me and my sister were at home, causing a ruckus, fighting with each other, going down the street, whatever, and just playing outside till all hours of the day and night. And yeah, I mean, she did everything she could possibly for us, and with the best, she did with what she had, and that was pretty much it. And I didn't really come from anything crazy. It's like I know what it's like to flip a light switch and the lights don't turn on, cars getting repossessed. We had a car get stolen out of our driveway one time. Our little blue, it was a blue Corsica, man, Chevy Corsica. That's what it was. And went out one day and it was just gone. I was like, "Mom, the car's gone," and I don't even remember how old I was.
Yeah.
Probably like 7. I don't know. And it had gotten stolen right out of the driveway. So that's kind of the neighborhood we lived in. And yeah, nothing really, nothing really too, I would say, shiny going on there.
What'd your parents do?
My mom, she was a city bus driver, and my dad, he was, well, he still is, an electronic technician. So he kind of like worked at this company up in Syracuse where they would fix like home theater kind of receivers, and I think they did a lot of work on car like Motorola kind of CBs, stuff like that,
Yeah.
and police band radios. I think they had a contract with one of the police forces out there. But yeah, I think the electronic technician and a city bus driver. But yeah, they were divorced when I was, I mean, probably like 2.5, maybe 3, I want to say. And so yeah, joint custodies, went to my dad's on the weekends type deal. But yeah, that was it.
Did y'all stay in Syracuse until you decided to join the military?
Oh yeah. Yeah. My first plane ride in my life was going to boot camp.
Yeah.
And
So
then so boot camp, let's see. Here's the breakdown of my flights. Okay. Plane number 1, boot camp. Plane number 2, went down to dive school. Plane number 3, I'm pretty sure I jumped out of at Fort Benning.
I was gonna say now you jump out of them.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was hooked. I was hooked.
Okay. Yeah, I think my first plane ride was actually when I joined. It was actually mine
Nice.
too. Yeah. Um, what did 15-year-old Jay think you were going to be doing? You mentioned earlier that you had that little spark of patriotism in you when 9/11 occurred, but did you know that you were going to join the military? Did you see yourself doing, or did you see yourself doing something different than that?
At 15, I had a pretty good idea that that's what I wanted to do. I didn't know in what capacity or anything really about it. It's like, yeah, I'll just join the military. I, was contemplating service academies and kind of doing like the ROTC kind of thing, but
Mhm.
I was not a good student in high school whatsoever. So that was a fleeting thought there. I kind of did the whole service academy thing for just like seeing what it would take to get in, and then
Yeah.
just like all the scores and everything. I was like, yeah, not gonna happen for me. And I just call it for what it is. It's like, you know what? That and I really didn't feel an intense amount of like this is what I should be doing. But then when I was kind of looking around, it's like maybe I'll just enlist in the military, but then do what?
Yeah.
But it's like I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew that I was most likely going to enlist at that point. Um, if I got my act together, because I was a rapscallion.
So you decided to join in 2008 and you chose the Navy. What was it that made you pick the Navy over all the other branches?
Well, full disclosure here, I went into the Navy with a SEAL contract.
Mm,
Yeah, and that's why I think I chose the Navy. I wanted to be a fighter pilot too. Back in the day, I think that's what I was like looking at when I was 15, 16. I was like,
yeah,
oh man, the Thunderbirds are so awesome. I'm going to go do that.
that's going to be me.
Yeah, that's going to be me. Totally going to do that. But then I was like, what am I realistically going to do? And then I learned about the SEALs and all that. Cause I mean, that's what the Navy recruiting office had. It's like, okay, athletic, you played through sports, you like this. This is kind of your value list, what you kind of want to get out of the military. So yeah, let's do this SEAL thing. I was like, okay, cool. Yeah. And so I got with like dive motivators and everything like that. I started doing the PT tests and all that. And it was good. That's where I first learned how to do the side stroke, was at my first PT test. I think I passed by 3 seconds. So that's kind of cool. But yeah, I didn't even know what EOD, explosive ordnance disposal, was when I joined the Navy. Like there was nothing about it,
Yeah.
like nothing, no literature, there was no handouts, there was no movies, there's no books. And yeah, I think I read Operation Red Wing, The Lone Survivor by Marcus Luttrell,
Mhm.
and that kind of just resonated with me. Where it's like, man, the soft community that's kind of where I want to go, and that's kind of what led me to getting a SEAL contract first. Um, but yeah, so that's why I chose the Navy.
And then obviously you mentioned EOD that you ended up going that route. So how did things change from going in as a SEAL to ending up EOD?
Yeah, well, it just so happened that my boot camp division was in the Navy. They call them 800 divisions. So that's where anyone that is going for a spec war program, whether that's SEALs, SWIC, the Special Warfare Combatant Craft Crewmen, EOD, diver, what have you, they would be putting these 800 divisions to kind of like do this dive motivator PT in the morning to kind of like be at a better playing field to actually meet the PT test requirements. So I was in this division, and it just so happened to be sponsored by EOD Mobile Unit 3. And in EOD, Explosive Ordnance Disposal, they're like the whole breakdown. They're like the commands are called mobile units. So I was like, what is EOD mobile unit? They're like, we had it on our ball caps, it's the cool, whatever. It's like, oh yeah, like they got recruit ball caps with EOD mobile unit 3 on them. So we felt kind of like no one knew what that was. I don't think there was a single EOD contract in my boot camp division. Um,
And real quick for
yeah,
our
no, yeah.
non-military people, what exactly, like in civilian terms, how would you explain what EOD is?
Well, EOD is essentially, it's the Navy's bomb squad. In the Navy, it's special operations. It's special operations bomb technician. So we are trained in the Navy to render safe, dispose of explosive hazards and ordnance, whether that is on land or underwater, and or improvised or
Yeah.
conventional. So yeah, it's kind of the full gambit. And well, I mean, a large portion of what I did was the IED threat, improvised explosive device, so homemade bombs. And so that's kind of like the EOD realm, which I didn't even know any of that.
Mhm.
These guys sponsored our boot camp division, this EOD Mobile Unit 3, and they would come out and kind of introduce themselves like, oh, you do what? That's kind of cool. And what really got me is they're like, we work with SEALs, we support SEALs, we support the Army also, we support Rangers, we support Green Berets, like any soft entity has EOD support. I'm like, wow, never knew that. Didn't even know you existed to begin with, let alone what you actually do. So I thought that was fascinating, honestly. And I kind of did something that really no one does is I just went to the dive motivator EOD guy. I was like, hey, what does it look like to transfer? Like, can I change my contract to an EOD contract? And this guy's like, heck yeah, I'm all about that. Let's do it. You seriously want to do that? I'm like, yeah. He's like, you want to give up your SEAL contract and go EOD? I was like, yeah, let's do it. Like, is that even allowed? Like, I don't even know. I don't know what's what. I'm 18 years old, you know? I didn't even know EOD existed until like I saw you over there, but I didn't know what you do. But yeah, no, it was like, I mean, that changed the trajectory of my whole career.
Wow. So you weren't washed out or nothing. It was just,
No,
I want to do this.
I was like, yeah, I want to do this. I learned about him very quickly, and I just had a gut feeling. It's like, man, this is what you need to be doing. And it's just so happens like the motto of EODs, to initial success or total failure. But we are the mission, right? The mission of EOD is the protection of personnel and property. Like, period, end of story. Like, no matter what you're doing as an EOD tech, it is always, or special operations bomb technician, it is always the protection of personnel and property. That's our main goal. It's not just going blowing stuff up. We just got blocks of C4 and we're just going crazy. It is, can I explosively reduce this threat because because we need to get rid of this threat to either the local population wherever we are, to our team, to us, or this infrastructure that's critical. That's what we're doing. And that's what we're assessing. So it's like, sometimes you can't just go down there and blow it up because, that could damage that critical infrastructure, or it could damage this person's home that it's like kind of right next to. So yeah, it's that really resonated with me because that's what when I was younger and September 11th, that's what I couldn't do.
Yeah.
I couldn't do that. And that didn't sit right with me. But now I was essentially delivered this opportunity to go and protect personnel and property. So I was like, yeah, I got to do this. Like, this is speaking to me right here in my gut. So, I did that. And yeah, the dive motivator that was there, man, he really helped me out. I was on hold for a while because like that just didn't happen. And some of the other cadre was kind of pissed off that I did that. But I was like, it's my life.
Not their career.
Yeah. So that's what I wanted to do. And yeah, it was the right decision for sure.
That's awesome. And talk about your trajectory of your story and how you went from seeing this happen on television to now this is what you have in front of you, this opportunity. And you talked about that success with that motto. You mentioned how you weren't that successful in high school. So what do you think was the biggest thing you learned about yourself in this small part of your journey we're talking about, from high school to venturing into the EOD world?
Man, it's like I just get this picture of one of my grade school teachers or middle school teachers, like glasses, gray hair, and just like, you just got to apply yourself, young man, and like, that's what I have in my mind. It's like, I can see the chalkboard, I can smell the chalk. It's all dusty in there because of all the chalk. And it's just like, I just had to apply myself. Man, I wasn't doing that. Not even a little bit, not even a shred. And then I started applying myself and things were happening. It's like, oh, this is what it's actually like if you give a shit, if you put some effort into it.
Isn't it crazy?
And yeah, it's wild. It's wild how far just even the realization of that, of like, okay, it's not everyone else. It's me just not applying myself and actually doing it. Right. And that's tough because, throughout all of school, it's like, oh, you just gotta apply yourself. It's like, I am applying myself. I am. It's just this teacher doesn't like me. That person doesn't like me. It's like, no, the problem's in the mirror, pal. Just to break the news to you.
I told Beckton the other night, I was like, I would give anything to go back and redo high school all over again because I did not apply myself at
There were
all.
so many parties I missed. No.
and it's funny because what you said, like looking back, I'm like, I thought I did pretty good, but I totally didn't apply myself. It wasn't, I think we all have that moment where it sparks, whether you're 25, you're 35, you're 55, where you start to live more intentionally and realize that it's not everybody else's that's holding you down. You control your destiny.
Yeah. And it's
And
wild because EOD is wildly academic. Like EOD training is very academically heavy. It's mentally taxing. I would argue the point of, everyone has seen, and there's been specials and like there's a lot of talks and stuff about Hell Week at Budge training. That's the SEAL training. I would say as physically demanding as that is, and I mean, I'm not like shooting it down or anything or demeaning it, is very physically taxing. That is essentially, if you could equate that to your brain, that is what EOD school is like for many divisions. While you're going through all this stuff, it's just very mentally taxing. You have to give every ounce of your mental energy the whole time.
what was the biggest adjustment you had to make mentally from, like you said, not really applying yourself in high school to now? It's like, oh my gosh, this is a whole nother level here.
It's the studying. I mean, studying and actually knowing why you're doing something, not just learning. It's like, okay, I read this publication and I'm dealing with this ordinance item and here's the procedure. Okay, now I'm going to go do the procedure. And you do that and you're going to fail. Like I did. I failed a couple tests, mainly because I was doing that. And it's like, I didn't understand why I was doing it. So then therefore I would violate something like a safety. And that's what would fail you in EOD school, is if you violate safeties. It's not really like it's not a letter grade because like you got so many questions wrong. It's essentially, did you die? Would you have died if you did this in real life? Yes, that's an automatic fail. Like from an action, that's an automatic fail. If it could have killed you, that's right there. And then if you do something else, another shape, then it's a no-go. And they weight the safeties, accordingly, like in essentially priority of how that would affect you.
Yeah.
Like if this is violated, you're going to die. That's an automatic failure. So that's how they would essentially grade tests in at least the practical examinations in EOD school. The paper test, it's like, it's like just so much information. It's like total memorization and you just got to get through it. But yeah, that just like buckling down and honing in and actually studying, because now it actually mattered. Whereas in high school, that was my differing opinions. Like none of this matters. Like whatever, I'm just going to join the military anyway. Where, that's just a piss poor attitude,
Yeah.
it's just bad. That's just a bad attitude to have. And because that would have, if I was in that realm, I would have known a little bit more about my learning style and how I actually like to learn, because EOD school was a very steep learning curve and I had to figure all that stuff out as I'm getting fed by a fire hose. And now everything actually does matter, because you fail this test, you're out.
Yeah.
You're done,
No, that's good stuff right there. That's good advice. And you were in the Navy this is where your story takes a little bit of a turn. You were in for 13 years. Now, most people, for all of our non-military listeners, typical retirement, 20 years for military. And you were at 13, and kind of one of the little sayings, like I hear it all the time from people. Hey, how many years are you in? I'm in 10. Oh man, you're at the halfway point. You might as well commit and finish it out. And especially if you hit 11, 12, 13 years, like I'm going on 13, and I just did my indefinite re-enlistment about 2 weeks ago, and everyone is like, oh yeah, 13, yeah, you're definitely in for the long haul. You got 13 and decided, nope, we got to go our separate ways. I'm cutting bait. Talk to us about that process, and like, what were some options you were weighing? Did you consider staying in for 20?
Yeah, for sure. No, I was riding that, I was on the fence for those 3 years. That's what they say. It's like 10-year mark, that's where you got to make your decision where you're either going to stay in or get out. And I was going back and forth. It's like, okay, if I get out, then this, if I don't get out, then that, if I get out, then that, and I was just going back and forth. It's like, okay, no, I want to get out. It's like, no, I want to stay in because it's going on. And then it was just, I love my community. Essentially I say I was born and raised into it because I was a pipeliner. And that is just, I love it. I do love my community. However, with the drawdown of the wars, there was, and this is like what really kind of propelled me to getting into what I'm doing now, is I felt like there was a shift in leadership where we have great leaders in EOD, don't get me wrong, but there are some key players where there was too much focus on too little. And that didn't sit right with me. And it's time and time again where it's like, what are we doing here? And why are we kind of risk mitigating ourselves out of jobs? Our job is inherently dangerous and we know how to mitigate risk appropriately. So, let's actually do our job and not say we can do it, but won't do it. And yeah, it was just a lot of focus. Again, I mean, to keep it in short terms is too much focus on too little. And that's one contributing factor. It's like, I don't think there's one thing where it's like, oh, I have to get out. Because I was definitely I was on the cusp right up until January of 21. My second son was being born. He was due at the end of January, and I was getting ready to stay in. I was probably gonna re-enlist. And the command that I was going to has a selection process that you have to kind of go through, and I was going through that, and it was like COVID was kind of, COVID was prevalent, is like kind of changing how people would go through that screening process. And I didn't have a date. And then they're like, okay, yeah, your date popped. I was doing like this research project. I got the email for it and everything. And then it's just like, okay, your screen week is this week, January 25th starting. And I was like, oh, that's when my son is due.
Mm.
And I kind of was just like, man, I just saw the writing on the walls. And, at that 13-year mark, I'm, personal finance coach, leadership and communication. But, I always look at the time and the numbers where 7 years, that's the better part of a decade. And, it's not easy. That's not easy. And I just kind of had a look in the mirror. It's like, if you miss this right now to go screen, what else are you going to miss? And are you okay with that? That's the biggest thing. And again, I just had to be honest with the guy in the mirror, and I'm like, no, you're not okay with that. And this is not what you need to be doing. And so I texted a trusted friend of mine who was the O boss over there where I was trying to go. And at that particular command, it's like, hey, this is what I'm feeling. He kind of knew like I was going to be screening and all that. And I was like, I'm not totally invested in this process right now. And I'm thinking about actually getting out. Instead, he's like, if that's how you feel, you need to let everyone know right now.
Yeah.
And I did. I sent that email out. It's like, thanks everyone for your time. However, I just, I respectfully bowed out. It's like, I'm not committed to this process, and I don't want to waste anyone's time or my own. And they respected that. They're like, great, thanks for letting us know, and good luck. Pretty much, there's no harm, no foul. Now, if I were to drag that out, yeah, there would have been a lot of animosity. If I'm just like, if I know that I'm not invested in this, I'm just going to waste a lot of time.
Yeah.
A
One
lot
foot
of
in,
energy.
1 foot out.
Yeah. And that's going to show, especially when you're screening for this command. Like, they're going to know. They are going to know. And it's going to show. And then it's going to get exploited. And then, you can only fake it for so long over there. And so, yeah, I was just real. I was real with myself. That's the thing, is like, you have to be real with yourself. And a lot of people, are in the military with families. I mean, I'm talking to one right now, and my heart goes out to you guys, right? It's just like, that's one of the hardest things as service members that we do, I think, is when we got to go on the trip and the family is still there. And it's like, see you later. It's like, we know what we're signing up for. They don't. really know or understand completely at all. They're supportive, but there's still that unknowing. So that's why I always say that the families make the biggest sacrifice for sure.
Absolutely.
And I really appreciate you, Trip, and while I'm saying this, you and the sacrifice of your family for my sake, for
I,
sure.
I appreciate that. Speaking of which, how did that conversation go with your wife?
Oh, she was thrilled.
Really?
Yeah, because I mean, she was supportive either way. I know what she wanted,
Mhm.
definitely the exit, but I told her the same thing where it's like I can't fully commit to getting out right now,
Yeah.
while I was still deciding. And she's like, either way, you know how I feel about it. But if you feel like you need to stay in, like that's what you need to do, we're gonna be behind you 100%. And just knowing I had that support was huge. And yeah, no, it was she was very relieved, honestly, when I broke the news to her. I was like, yeah, I just sent the email, not screening, and I'm gonna get out. And yeah.
Timing plays a large part in a lot of the decisions that we make. Do you think that if you and your wife wouldn't have been uh, in that situation where y'all have a newborn on the way, do you think you would have stayed in? Do you think that would have changed anything?
It's hard to say because we had
Yeah.
one already. Our oldest son, he was 1.5, I want to say,
So
during
yeah, he
that
was
time
still
frame.
really young.
So I was still thinking about, it's like, well, I mean, he's 1.5, 7 years. I mean, I mean, 8.5, or he'll be
Long
nine and a
time.
half, and those are like those are fun years. So I'm told. Uh, and
They get to teenager age, are not fun anymore.
yeah, if they were teenagers, you're like, heck yeah. I'd be like, yeah,
Yeah.
sure. Go ahead. Kristen, you got it. I'm gone. Good luck.
Teenagers get boring. They get boring when they get like 13, 14.
No, but yeah, it was definitely on my mind. And yeah, it's hard to say, if that wasn't the case, if I was going to miss the birth of my son,
Yeah.
then I don't know. It's hard to say. I probably still would have got there eventually, but
Yeah.
that would have been tough because that would have, like, timing is everything. And it just so happened that screen week lined up with uh my youngest due date.
Yeah. It when you decided, hey, I'm transitioning out of the military, what was the biggest hurdle that you had to overcome in that transition process?
I don't even know. There's just, I mean, I guess, you know what? I do know. I mean, it's inundating. There's so much stuff you have to do to get out of the military, which it's like you think you're just going to get out and, like, cool, see you later. You guys don't have to pay me anymore. They're like,
Turn off
yeah,
the
we
lights
know.
like it's last episode of Cheers or
Yeah.
something.
They're like, no, hold on a second. You got to go do all of these things, go to all these appointments, do this class, get this capstone, do this. Oh, yeah. Also, there's your VA thing that you got to do, fill out this paperwork, do all this stuff. I'm like, okay, that's just like to get processed. That's just to start the process. Now, I'm not even talking about actual transition where now I'm going to be talking to normal people, civilians, and I need to figure out how to speak their language. No one knows what a jump master is. No one knows what a demolition supervisor is, team leader, whatever. And it's like, oh yeah, I blew up X thousands of pounds of HE and, jumped out of X amount of planes. And they're like, cool, but how can you help me in this company? So I think that was the biggest hurdle was translating my military experience to actual English
Yeah.
and the civilian world, or relating that to a client,
Yeah.
should I say? Because now it's like, I work for myself, which is like, that's what I had to do, because it's like, man, I've worked for a huge organization and I can't go back there. I ain't going back.
Yeah.
You can't take me back. So yeah, that's kind of what I did. And yeah, that's definitely super difficult to translate that military experience and then just kind of retool your jargon. Even though you don't think you have it, it's definitely there. And I catch
Yeah.
myself doing it from time to time, but I have gotten a lot better with that. And it's very important because, a lot of my story is from the military. And a lot of the reasons why I do what I do now is because of some of the experiences I had in the military.
Let our listeners know what it is that you do now.
Well, as the well, no longer the CEO. I just dished that off to a very good friend of mine, Ivan Ingram. We can include him in this. He's the CEO of Golden Compass.
You're president, right?
I'm the founder and the president of Golden Compass, and that is a coaching firm. We focus on leadership, communication, and personal finance. And the cornerstone of the company is definitely rooted in personal finance. I was a personal finance coach first, and then as I started doing budgets with, leaders in the community, I'm like, man, I know your reputation, and I know why people think the way that, I don't know. I didn't know why they thought the way that I just like our perception of this person. So it's like, for example, you have a leader that's all about the men, the mission, the command, right?
Yep.
That's what they care about, the command members and women, right? And then you have the opposite side of the coin that's like, I'm going to chase rank. I'm going to make myself look good. How can I write this eval or fit rep or whatever all the other service branches calls them, to make myself look good so I get promoted? I'm chasing rank, chasing awards, and boom, that's what I care about. That's what I make decisions based on. What's popular amongst my peers. Cool, we're going to go this way instead of what the actual mission is and what the men and the women of the command need from me. And we just think that those are just bad leaders. They're bosses. It's like they're in leadership positions. And it's like, great. It's like we don't really think highly of them. However, I was doing budgets with a few actually. And a light switch turned on because I was doing that. I'm like, man, there's a common thread here that I have to keep pulling. The general qualities, right, that were consistent across the board for the the chasing rank, chasing awards scenario was very overextended, personal finance wise, very overextended. Like, so I'm talking like living way outside the means, several car notes, several homes. So it's like their primary residence, several rentals, most of like half or a majority, or even just like, even if one was vacant, that was like really putting a strain on them. And maybe they're nearing retirement and they're kind of looking at all the numbers and everything. And now that is why they were chasing rank, chasing awards, so they can get more money, because they needed more money, because they were hurting. They were hurting in their personal lives. And so that's when I was like, oh man, my perception is totally wrong. Like, this person is not just a complete asshole. They are hurting deeply. And still, I mean, that's where I then really got into the leadership side of the house, because I'm like, this is connected. This is connected 100%. If people have better personal finances in their homes, then they will be better leaders. And then that was kind of reinforced when I was doing more budgets, right? With the other leaders in the community, and the good ones, right? The good leaders that were making decisions based off of the best interests of the command members, the mission, and what we needed. They were consistently investing in retirement. They lived within their means. They were using a written budget, and they were they had an emergency fund, and they were investing regularly in their retirement. Those basic things right there. That was like those were the commonalities between that other scenario versus the people that were chasing rank, chasing awards. Yeah. And I was like, man, this is crazy. That never dawned on me that would have such an effect. However, it 100% did, and does, for that matter. So that's how I got into the leadership side of the house. And that's what we do now with Golden Compass LLC. It is a leadership, communication, and personal finance coaching practice.
Well, question to backtrack, but before I do that, if listeners want to find out more about Golden Compass, where can you point them to?
We are on Facebook. We are on LinkedIn. We sponsor a show, the Live Free series, which is hosted by yours truly. So you can always listen to me there. And yeah, those are the best ways. Definitely. We're on Instagram too, for sure. Definitely, I'm most active on LinkedIn, me personally, and for the company. So yeah, and Facebook. We just
seem more like a LinkedIn kind of guy.
I'm definitely more into LinkedIn because it's like, it's starting to kind of seem a little bit Facebook-ish, where it's like, it's like, okay, let's get back to like what we're actually trying to do here. Focus.
It is starting to kind of veer that way.
Yeah, but it's definitely I think, the ideal platform for networking, connecting, which is huge. And yeah, and just growing a business and your personal brand.
Vaughn, did she connect us on LinkedIn?
Probably.
I think we
Yeah.
were connected on LinkedIn. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure we were. I mean,
Yeah.
it is the best. I mean, LinkedIn, you're getting linked up. I mean, it's definitely it's a great platform. So yeah,
Yeah.
the company's on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. Our CEO, Ivan Ingram, he's on LinkedIn, and you can connect with all of us there. And yeah, we do have a Facebook page also.
Now, before we get into your podcast, I have to ask where you went from explosive ordinance disposal to personal finance coach.
Yes.
How did that happen? Where did that love come from?
Well, that is kind of a long story. So I'll try to give you the cliff notes. It was, I mean, the 30,000 foot view is money almost killed me. Like money almost killed me. And it was solely based off of the decisions that I was making. It wasn't because the credit card companies were after me and, this bank was after me or whatever the case may be. It was because of my mismanagement of my money, the mismanagement of what was given to me, and just that, really. And I almost paid the ultimate price for it. And what's worse is my team almost paid the ultimate price for it because I was too distracted to do my job properly. And with EOD, the bottom line is not, several $1 million budget that you're, making sure is in the black. It is the 20 guys that you love just like brothers, their lives. That's the bottom line. And because I was so distracted by everything that I was doing, the mismanagement, I almost had to explain. Well, actually, I wouldn't have even been around because I would definitely have been gone too. But yeah, someone would have had to explain why their husbands and dads and brothers and sons were not home, and it would have been because I was not doing my job properly. So
First of all, I appreciate you sharing that. Second, how far was this before you ended up separating from the military?
this was in 2014, so a few years ago, a few years prior.
Okay. And is that kind of when you started getting the thought in your head that this might not be what I want to do? Like maybe there is something for me with this finance piece.
Well, actually, I wasn't even a personal finance coach at that point. Like, I mean, my finances were a wreck. And it was at that point where I was like, okay, something has to change. So, and it honestly, it wasn't even at that moment where that situation went down. Like that went down. My team was super supportive. Like no one got hurt or injured. It was essentially an ID that I missed. There was two of them, one low ordered right next to our command and control element. The other one was 6 feet away from where I was. And but based on the size and what it was and the direction it was pointed, my teammate that was with me, myself, and then our C2 element that I talked about, it was pointed directly kind of at us. And where our C2 element was about 30 meters behind us, it was about the size of a paint can, lined with steel ball bearings, like in a convex shape. A concave shape, like inside. So that would have just focused all those steel ball bearings exactly down the path that we were standing. And this thing was 6 feet away from where I was, where my teammate was.
This wasn't training. This was like live.
This was in Afghanistan in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah. This was Afghanistan in the middle of the day, about an hour south of Kabul, is where we were at this point in time. And yeah, that was it. I mean, I didn't even know it was there. One of our partner force told me. I was working on the ID that low ordered, collecting evidence and stuff like that. And then our interpreter comes up to me and is like, hey, one of the local police guys says that there's another ID in the vicinity of where we are right now. It's like, where is it? And A, how does he know that? B, where is it? Super sketchy that he would know that. And why is he just telling about us now? Why is he telling us this now? But that's besides the point, right? It was like we already had an ID go off and it was cell phone initiated. So I knew, like, if there's a threat of something else in the area, I need to find it right now. So he's like, yeah, it's over here. And my buddy was still standing over there. So I like cleared over to him. Or, I mean, I essentially took the same path or whatever. Then I cleared up to where he said there was an IED. 6 feet away from where we were standing. And sure enough, there was fully hooked up, ready to rock. And it was, I mean, again, the size of a paint can, so about a gallon size can. And this would have killed us for sure. Like the HE in this alone would have killed me and my buddy that were 6 feet away. And the incorporation of the steel ball bearings, there's probably like 150 to 250 at least in this thing. That would have shredded us, and our C2 element would have been severely wounded at a minimum. So this thing is like, I find it after I was told it was there, uncover it, cell phone initiated. So that's like immediate action at that point as an EOD guy. It's like, you can't back out, like everyone, because someone could be calling it right now and it could go off literally in the next nanosecond.
Yeah.
So drop down to a knee. This thing's like literally in between my legs. Figure out how it works, render it safe. And then I'm just like taking a knee and just like trying to breathe and just like telling the story. It's like still hard to breathe when I'm thinking about it. I just remember when the phone was hooked up, you know, and it still had power going to it, there was 4 missed calls on it, you know, so that means someone called this thing 4 times. We were standing there for about 40 minutes that were staring at us in the crosshairs, staring at us, calling this thing. And it didn't go off 4 times. We have stuff in place that kind of helps us out for that kind of thing. But, you know, 1 did go off. So there was a break in our protection. But yeah. And I just was staring at that thing for probably like, I mean, in all reality, it was probably 10 seconds. I was just staring at this thing and just like seeing that 4 missed calls. But in my mind, that was like an eternity. And that 100% would have killed me and my buddy. And what we were talking about was different pays. I was like, hey man, did your extra pays get started? Because when you go on deployment, you get the tax-free money, you get hazardous fire, imminent danger. So I'm literally asking my buddy, right? We're on a dismounted patrol in Afghanistan and we don't have trucks. We don't have, well, like what we have is what we have on our bodies. And I'm literally asking him about hazardous fire pay and imminent danger on foot in Afghanistan in the middle of the day on an operation when I should have been laser focused on my job as a bomb technician. But I needed to know that because I was like, man, I got these bills coming up. And at this point, it's not even subconsciously like taking up bandwidth in my mind. I'm speaking this out loud. So it is on the forefront of my mind. It is in the world because I'm talking about it. And it's like, man, I hope we get these pays soon because I have this mortgage that I got to pay that I've been paying with this credit card that I've been paying off that credit card with this credit card. I was doing the shell game, like robbing Peter to pay Paul. And that is not okay. You know, I got lucky in that situation that we had some countermeasures that we had and we got lucky how we got lucky. That's what it boils down to. I got lucky and I got lucky for a reason. And I believe that reason is to share that distracted nature. And we are all, we really think that we're really good at well, I can't even say this word, compartmentalizing our stuff, right? It's like, oh, I just had this argument. I can put that away. I just had this argument, or I just had like this bill due. I'm just going to put that away. It's like, I'm waiting for this check team. I'll just put that away for now. So I can be a professional and focus on my job. Where now it's like, or I can compartmentalize my job and focus on my family and my friends. I'm just here to tell you, yeah, right. You can only do that for so long. Everything is porous, everything. And what happened to me, I just kind of lose sleep at night still thinking about it when I'm like, man, how many other service members out there were in the same boat that did not get lucky?
Yeah.
They were so focused on something else instead of their job. And then they paid the price for it, or someone else paid the price for it. And that is a statistic that we're probably never going to know because I don't know how you're ever going to get that data, but it just keeps me up at night because I looked around and I was not the exception to anything. I was the standard. The Mark 1 Mod O is what we call that. The standard issue minted version of me. Like that was everyone, right? That was everyone. And that didn't sit right with me. So, and it wasn't even until like a couple of years after that, where a buddy of mine sat down, he was all about budgeting and everything like that and wouldn't shut up about it. I'm like, dude, no one cares about your budget. Like, Just stop talking about it. And I was kind of a jerk to him, but he's like, dude, this is a game changer, man. It's awesome. Like you gotta get your budget game up. I was like, dude, I will sit down with you and do this if you promise me to stop talking about it. And he's like, okay, yeah, sure, whatever,
It's
man.
good
Let's do it.
salesman. He got you.
Yeah. And seriously, and man, it was in that hour of my life was what changed everything. That it was then. I wish it was after that incident that I was just talking about, but it wasn't. It was this dude, dear friend of mine, sat down with me, spent an hour of his time helping me, who was being a jerk to him, get my budget lined out. I'm like, I saw that for the first time in my adult life. I was like, this is what's wrong with everything. This is why I'm so stressed out. This is why I'm baseline super anxious. This is why I am short with everyone. This is why my relationships are blowing up. This is why, man, I didn't burn bridges. I just like dropped JDAM, like Mark 82 bombs, just like detonated bridges. And it was because I was so worried about paying bills.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have time for anything. That was always in the back of my mind running constantly in the background refresh all day, every day. And that takes up a lot of your bandwidth. And if I need 100% of my focus, my bandwidth, that's impossible to have. I have at best 75% at best. And that's saying nothing else in my life is going on. That means the relationship that I just blew up, or that argument with my teammate that I had that was totally like didn't need to happen.
Yeah.
That's on my mind too now. So now my bandwidth is further decreased, and that is going on, and a lot of people are like, well, I've never been face to face with an ID, or it's like, that's, how's that applicable to me? And it's like that, what I alluded to earlier is like translating this and how it actually is applicable to clients, where you don't have to be face to face with a literal IED. That
Riding down the
IED,
road.
yeah, that could be your kid. Your kid could be that IED. Your husband, wife, whoever, your boss, coworkers, your team, they could be that IED. And if you are not paying attention to it, it's gonna blow up in your face.
Yeah. You could be riding down the street and you're
Yep.
distracted. And I mean, and you're in a
Game over.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say, to talk about the compartmentalizing piece you were talking about, I've always been told it's like bowling balls in a closet. And we like to put them away and think, I'll deal with it later. But eventually
you can fit them in there eventually, you can fit some in there for sure.
Yep. But the second you open that closet, and there will come a day where you have to face the music at that point. And then also you mentioned that 1 hour talk that y'all had. Biggest takeaway you took from that conversation, other than I got to get my finances in order? Like, what was the biggest like nugget, that like aha moment you had from that conversation?
It was the fact that he was willing to serve me in that time. 1 hour he sat with me and was just walking with me. He wasn't in a place of judgment. I mean, and I was this guy's LPO, right? His leading petty officer. So in the Navy, that's like the whatever, the senior E6 on the team, right? And he was a new guy, and he was just a really good friend of mine. He's just like, I mean, that's just our community. It's like, we kind of like, we do have a rank structure. However, at the end of the day, it's like, we have a job to do and we need to get that done first. And so it's like, this guy, he was a little bit older and he had a career and everything like that, before he came in. So yeah, we just kind of, he's a good friend of mine. And that's the biggest takeaway, is time is our most precious commodity, and how we spend it is very important. And we have to be as intentional as I have been talking about, like with money and everything. Like, we have to be intentional with our time, because
100%.
if we just sit down with someone for an hour that is hurting, you might not even know how badly they're hurting. That could change the trajectory of their entire life.
Yeah. It's kind of crazy too, because we started this with our 5 rounds, and I asked you what gives you meaning, and you said serve others. And here we are talking about that turning point in your life. It was somebody helping you, someone taking that time to sit down with you. So really full circle here, with your story. And that brings us to the Live Free series. So now, if for all of our listeners, first of all, if you have not checked out Live Free series, you need to go check it out. Right now, it's still in its little podcast infancy stage. You're still kind of peeing on newspapers.
We're getting ready for a relaunch.
Yeah. How many episodes? Like at the time we're recording this, just peek behind the curtain. It's March 24th that we're recording this episode. How many episodes have you dropped up to this point?
Maybe five
on the Lima Charlie Network, by the way.
Yes, on the Lima Charlie Network, where you can find a series of great podcasts and individuals and thought leaders, for the record.
Yep.
There's our five
plug. So 5 episodes. Okay. And what day do they come out?
They come out so typically every other Wednesday. However, my last one was February 9th, which is a great episode. I've been taking a little bit of a hiatus again on that time aspect. Time is our most precious commodity that we have. I just had to be real with myself. It's like, I got a lot of stuff going on right now and I need to devote my time to other things. And I have a lot of episodes kind of queued up. However, just the timing wasn't right. However, that is all squared away. We're getting ready to relaunch and it is going to be insane. So yeah, stay tuned.
It's awesome stuff you're doing. I love your series. I've been listening to them since the first one came out. But for our listeners who have not heard an episode yet, and they're like, man, this guy's got a good voice. I like this. I want to check out more about his story and about everything he's doing. Tell us like kind of the synopsis of what the Live Free series consists of.
So the Live Free series is a very simple concept. I'm a very simple man, if you guys weren't picking that up. It is, what does freedom mean to you? Why does that matter? And I like to talk about, with my guests, a time in their lives where they had a toxic mentality or a self-limiting belief that kept them from that definition of freedom. And what the goal is, we're trying to eradicate enslaved mindsets, right? Because from our conversation trip, I mean, right from the get-go, it's like, yeah, my teacher, it's like, you need to apply yourself more. And that was my own mind. Like that was me being my own worst enemy, right? Yeah. And we do that time and time and time again. So this show, it's people from all different walks of life, military, civilian, retired, otherwise, all different socioeconomic backgrounds, different colors, creeds, religions, whatever, whatever flavor they come in, I take them all. And I just want to know what freedom means to people, because at the end of the day, everyone should be serving their purpose. And if you're not, free. And freedom to me means doing the things you love with the people you love when you want to, as often as you want. Obviously, within the constraints of the law, I have to say that, full disclaimer. So if you are not doing, and I'm not saying that is what everyone's definition of freedom is, because everyone may have a different opinion or a different definition, what freedom means to them, which is super important to me. So if you are not living within your definition of freedom, you are a slave to something or someone. And that can only be answered by you. I can't tell you that. Your friends can't tell you that. Your parents can't tell you that. Your family can't tell you that. They have an outside opinion for sure. And they'll let you know unsolicited, I'm sure. However, at the end of the day, what does freedom mean to you? Why does that matter? And if you're not living with that, you are a slave to someone or something. And I want everyone to know that they can live with freedom, right? I was able to be an enslaved, toxic, everything. I had self-limiting beliefs, toxic mindset, toxic mentality. I had it all. And it was up to me to change that. And I just want everyone to know that they can do it too. If I can do it, anyone can do it.
Yeah, I love the concept of your podcast. We started talking, I think, right before you launched your first one?
Yeah. You were actually the catalyst, because I was like, yeah, I got this idea. I've had it. And you're like, why don't you just do it? What are you doing?
Yeah. I like I said, I've been a fan of you since you started with it. And I guess I'm like your day one in podcasting. But yeah, it's love the show on Instagram at the Live Free series. Go on there, go follow him on Instagram, and then check out website, LinkedIn. I mean, we mentioned the Lima Charlie Network. Head over to limacharlienetwork.com. Go over there. You can find them as well. But what do you want? You mentioned wife and kids, 50 years from now, when your grandchildren are talking about you, what do you want them to say?
It's mainly what I don't want them to say. If I don't hear them talking about how, they have to do this because it's like what society deems that they should do, um, that would be gold, right?
Yeah.
I want to live in a society where uh, a majority of our country isn't living paycheck to paycheck. I want to live in a society where people are serving for their purpose. They have and they're embracing that freedom and they're living for it every day. And that's where I want my great grandkids to be a part of. I want to see them there. And if they say, you know, I love spending time with you whenever I can, when I want to, it's like, that'd be great, whatever. I don't know. I don't even know. I can't even imagine that. Oh my gosh. I'm just thinking about my sons
I
now.
like how you went straight to great grandkids.
That's right.
Well, final thing before we get going, because I just thought of this. As of the time we're recording this, our nation is struggling with some finances, especially gas prices. Gas
Oh, yeah.
prices are at a ridiculous amount. What budgeting, like what little freebie do you have for people out there in terms of I saw like on the news today, people were frozen pizzas and stuff are what toilet paper was 2 years ago when the pandemic kicked off. Gas prices, I can only imagine in California what they are, considering what they are here in Alabama. What free nugget would you give people out there for how to properly handle their finances in these trying times financially?
I will give this bit of free advice, but I will give it with a disclaimer that while it's free advice, it is hard work. So that's the difference between winning with money and having the illusion that you're wealthy. And that is, you have to be intentional with your money. If you don't use a written budget, you need to use a written budget. Like, get one down tonight. Write down your expenses, and it's a zero-based budget is what I teach. So that is all of your expenses and all of your income minus all of your expenses equals zero. And whether that you're contributing to your retirement or a different savings account or whatever the case may be, those are all expenses. So your income minus your expenses should equal zero at the end of the day. If it is negative, something needs to change, right? Something needs to get cut. If it's positive, you have money just not doing something. So give it a job, right? Give every single dollar you have a job to do. And that's the difference of having a budget and not having a budget, where a lot of people I talk to, it's like, oh, a budget, it's so constricting and I don't want it and I don't like it. It's actually, it gives you freedom because you know exactly how much money you have and you know exactly where every single dollar is going. So now you have the choice. If you're like, man, I want to go out more. If that's the case, if it's appropriate, you'd be like, well, I spend a lot of money on these subscriptions that I don't use. Or, man, I buy 3 Monsters every single day and 3 cans of dip or whatever. And that adds up to a lot of money, like hundreds of dollars. I'm talking like if you invested the equivalent price of a Monster and a dip can,
You taking a jab at me?
boom, there you go.
Mine's a ghost.
I mean, I do
it's
it
not
too.
a monster.
I do it too.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you just need that boost. But it's like, do other things like sleep hygiene, which I'm terrible at, and I'm trying to get better at that. So yeah, boom, there's one for me. But yeah, the budget is huge. I don't want to go off on too many tangents. Do the budget, write down your expenses, write down all your income. They should equal zero at the end of the day. So that means you're paying all your bills first, the 4 walls, which is your food, right? You have to eat. And that doesn't mean out. That means the grocery store. So maybe frozen pizzas are all gone. Go to the next aisle over. Get something cheap. You can very easily get healthy, nutritious food for a low amount of money at the end of the day. That is way cheaper than, and if that's your gripe, it's like fast food is not healthy, right? It's not healthy. So shop the grocery store outside aisles. Get your food budget squared away, because at the end of the day, like, you have to eat to live. The second wall is your housing. So that's making sure your house is good to go, your mortgage or your rent is paid, and any insurance that you have, like whether that's renters or otherwise, Utilities, make sure those are squared away. The third wall is transportation. Make sure your vehicles are good to go. Inspections if you need them. If you're in a state that requires inspection. Tires are not an emergency. You know when they're going to wear out. Okay. Oil changes are not an emergency. You know when your oil is going to need to be changed. These things are not emergencies. Plan for them. Brakes, not an emergency. Sometimes they go out of round if you have drums or whatever, but if that's the case, call me up and we'll figure it out. Right. I'll give you a plan to do that. But typically car maintenance is not an emergency. There's a very, very detailed plan in your owner's manual that will tell you exactly the maintenance schedule of your vehicle. Use it. That'll save you tons of money. And then the last one I say is communication, especially right now in this day and age. So that's your phone, internet, because we have to stay connected. I mean, we're talking to each other. I'm in Virginia Beach. You're in Alabama. We need to stay connected, especially, a lot of people are working from home. So that's hugely important. So make sure those are taken care of first. Anything outside of that is arguably an unnecessary expense with the exception of, childcare and stuff like that. Those are obviously necessary expenses outside of the four walls. But that is like one of the biggest things that I can harp on right now, especially with the rising prices of gas. I've gotten this question a lot. It's like, man, my gas amount, like I'm spending so much money on gas. I'm like, well, how much are you spending? It's like, I don't even know. It's just like so much money. I'm like, well, write it down, write down how much you are spending on gas. That way you actually know, and write down how much you're spending on everything else. That way you can cut other things to make up that cost. Like my gas prices are doubled too. I got 3 cars, and my gas prices are doubled on all 3 of them. So this is where it's like, you need to have this flexibility in your budget. And now when you have that freedom, and it's like, control your money, find your freedom. That's my thing, right? Control your money, find your freedom. Because when you can have a double gas price, in your budget, then you just allocate things appropriately. And then cool. It's like, yeah, it's an inconvenience. Like, yeah, I'm upset that I have to pay this much for gas. It's not ruining my life though. Back in the day, this would have been catastrophic for me. This would have been absolutely catastrophic. So I don't want anyone to think that I ever coach from like a position of like, I'm on the pulpit and I'm pointing my finger at you. I was there. I feel the pain. I had to plan going back up to Syracuse, near where I'm from, based off of how I could fill my tank up. Because like I had a truck, a brand new truck. I was that guy. I was that E4 or E3. I actually bought my truck when I was in E3 because I was graduating EOD school. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to get this bonus. And then I spent it before I even got it. Little did I know this thing about taxes. So my bonus was not as large as I thought it was going to be. So yeah, E3, bought a brand new truck.
Was awesome interest rate, probably like 19% or something.
I will say I had a decent interest rate. It was like 5.9, but I'm never doing that ever again.
Yeah.
Never doing that ever again. That car was $10,000 more than I made in a year.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like in nothing. So it's like what? I was making like maybe 25,000 a year, maybe back in 2009. And yeah, I mean, that truck was $38,000 back in the day. That's what you get a full size truck for back in the day. Nowadays, that's not going to get you a car. But yeah, that's like the biggest thing that I can say is just be intentional with your money, write it down. It's a behavior aspect of money. There's a lot of behavior that is associated with money. And that's what we focus on when we talk personal finance, is the behavioral aspects of money. We don't sell magic pills. We don't sell financial products that are going to make you millions of dollars. We encourage you and implore you to take control of your money, to find your freedom. So then you can do the things you love with the people you love when you want to, as often as you want.
See, that was good. That was good. Sparked something there. That was good.
Heck yeah, I get fired up.
Yeah. No, folks, one more time, go check him out. Live Free series, everything he's doing over with Golden Compass. Jay, what final comments do you have for our Shadows listeners?
Man, I just appreciate you having me on, Trip. And just know I was in the shadows, and I know a lot of you are probably in the shadows and you have your own shadows. It's not permanent. You don't have to stay there. If you're in the shadow of a building, you just walk out of the shadow and you're good. I know that is way easier said than done, because I've been in that pit of disparity where there's nothing but shadows.
Embrace it.
Yeah, you can get out of there. It's not permanent.
Yep. Just part of your story. Just part of
Yep.
your story.
It'll be a chapter in your book.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for being a chapter here on the Shadows podcast, for contributing, sharing your story. And thank you for opening up and sharing that moment that you had as well with us. Folks, that is going to conclude this episode of the Shadows podcast.